At my son's wedding, his bride lifted a crystal glass in front of 260 guests, smiled like an angel, and called me a useless old woman as if I were the punchline to the happiest day of her life. The ballroom at the Grand Willow Hotel in Columbus, Ohio, went quiet in a way I will never forget. Not completely quiet, not at first. There was still the soft clink of silverware, the low hum of the air conditioning, the faint music coming from the string quartet near the windows. But beneath all of that, something froze. I sat at table 19, 3 tables away from the kitchen doors, with a linen napkin folded in my lap and a glass of ice water sweating beside my untouched chicken. I was the mother of the groom, but you would not have known it by looking at where they placed me. Daniel, my only son, was seated at the head table beside his new wife, Brittany Caldwell, under an arch of white roses and gold lights. He looked handsome in his navy tuxedo, older than I remembered and younger than he wanted the world to believe. For a moment, when Brittany first stood to give her toast, I let myself believe she might thank me. Not because I needed praise. At 68, a woman learns to live without applause. But I had raised the man sitting beside her. I had packed his lunches, sat through his little league games, paid for braces after his father died, and held him the night he failed his first bar exam and thought his life was over. So when Brittany turned her bright smile toward my side of the room, I sat a little straighter. She held the microphone with one hand and her champagne flute with the other, glowing beneath the chandelier like the perfect bride in a magazine. And of course, she said, her voice sweet enough to hide a blade, we have to thank Daniel's mother, Margaret. A few heads turned toward me. I smiled politely. Brittany tilted her head, pretending tenderness. Margaret taught Daniel patience. After all, if you can survive 40 years of the same old stories, the same casseroles, and the same guilt trips, marriage should be easy. A few guests chuckled. Not many. Just enough to make my cheeks warm. I looked down at my hands, at the age. Spots across my knuckles, at the thin gold band I still wore from my late husband, Thomas. Brittany continued, encouraged by the sound. Don't worry, sweetheart, she said, turning toward Daniel. From now on, you have a real woman taking care of you. Not a useless old woman clinging to the past. That was when the room changed. I felt it more than heard it. The laugh that tried to start and failed. The fork that stopped halfway to someone's mouth. The bridesmaid who suddenly looked at the floor. Across the ballroom, Daniel's face flushed red. I waited for him to stand. I waited for one word. Mom. Stop. Brittany, that's enough. Anything. But my son only stared at his plate, then gave a small, embarrassed smile, the kind people give when they want cruelty to pass quickly so they do not have to choose a side. Then he lifted his glass. That hurt more than the toast. A woman can survive being insulted by a stranger wearing lace and perfume. It is harder to survive watching your own child make room for the insult. I did not cry. I did not shake. I did not stand up and ruin the wedding the way Brittany probably hoped I would. I only reached for my water, took one small sip, and set the glass down carefully on the white tablecloth. Eleanor Hayes, my oldest friend, sat beside me. Under the table, her hand found mine. She did not squeeze in pity. She squeezed once, firmly, like a warning not to move too soon. Let her finish, she whispered without looking at me. Some people do their best work destroying themselves. Brittany moved on to thanking her parents, her maid of honor, the wedding planner, even the florist. Her voice softened again, polished and graceful, as if she had not just stripped dignity from an old woman in front of 260 people. I watched Daniel laugh when she touched his shoulder. I watched guests pretend nothing had happened because pretending is easier than honesty at a wedding reception. I watched the candles flicker inside tall glass holders, their little flames bending whenever someone walked past. And beneath the folded napkin on my lap, hidden from the entire room, rested a cream-colored envelope from Franklin County Trust. Inside it was a signed confirmation for a $220,000 wedding gift meant to help Daniel and Brittany buy their first house in the suburbs. Brittany knew about the money. What she did not know was that the transfer was not final. She did not know that Eleanor, a retired family attorney, had insisted I add one quiet condition before releasing it. She did not know that respect, once written into a legal document, could become more expensive than any diamond on her hand. So I sat there at table 19, beneath the soft gold lights, listening to my new daughter-in-law celebrate herself. I smiled once, not because I was weak, and not because I forgave her. I smiled because for the first time all day, I understood exactly what her mistake had been. The rest of the room kept moving after Brittany sat down, but I no longer felt like I was sitting inside a wedding reception. I felt like I was watching it through thick glass. The servers came around with plates of salmon and roasted vegetables. Someone at the next table asked for more butter. A young cousin near the dance floor laughed too loudly at something on her phone. Life continued in all the small, ordinary ways it always does after someone has been wounded in public, because most people are relieved when the pain does not belong to them. Eleanor kept her posture straight beside me, her silver hair pinned neatly above the collar of her emerald dress. She had known me since Daniel was 5 years old, back when Thomas and I lived in a small brick house on Maple Ridge Avenue and thought a 2-car garage meant we had made it. She knew the sound of my Betrayal laugh. She knew the name of the hospital where Thomas took his last breath. She knew exactly how much strength it took for me not to fold in half right there at table 19. "Breathe through your nose," she said softly, never turning her head. "Do not give her a scene." So I breathed. Slowly. In. Out. I looked at the white roses hanging above the head table and remembered the morning, because humiliation rarely begins at the moment people notice it. It usually begins earlier, in small corrections, small exclusions, small doors quietly closing before anyone admits there is a wall. That morning, I had stood in my bedroom for almost 20 minutes deciding whether the champagne-colored dress was too formal. Thomas had loved that color on me. He used to say it made my gray eyes look softer, and even after 7 years without him, I still heard his voice when I fastened the pearl necklace he had given me on our 30th anniversary. I had wrapped Daniel's wedding card in cream paper and tucked it into my purse beside the bank envelope. The card had taken me 3 tries to write because every version sounded too sentimental or too careful. In the end, I wrote only what was true. "My dear Daniel, I hope this home you are building begins with kindness. Love, Mom." I arrived at the Grand Willow Hotel 40 minutes early. That is what mothers do. We arrive early, carry tissues, remember safety pins, and pretend we are not hoping someone will need us. The hotel lobby smelled of lilies and lemon polish. Men in dark suits moved floral arrangements on rolling carts. Bridesmaids in dusty rose dresses hurried past me in a cloud of hairspray and perfume. I smiled at them, expecting one to recognize me, expecting someone to say, "Mrs. Whitmore, we have been looking for you." No one did. At the check-in table, a young woman with a headset searched the printed guest list while I stood there holding my small gift bag. "Name?" she asked. "Margaret Whitmore," I said. "Mother of the groom." Her finger moved down the page, stopped, moved again. Her smile faltered. "I am sorry, I do not see you under immediate family." I thought I had misheard her. "Try Margaret Ellis Whitmore," I said. "Or perhaps Mrs. Thomas Whitmore." She checked again, then lifted a second clipboard. "Here you are. Table 19. She handed me a place card without looking at my face. It said Margaret W. No mother of the groom. No family designation. Just a letter, as if even my name had been trimmed to save space. I told myself it was a mistake. Weddings have mistakes. Flowers arrive late. Men forget cufflinks. Seating charts get changed. But then a hotel assistant came by carrying small white corsages, each pinned with a pearl-headed needle. I saw one labeled Mother. Of the bride. Another said stepmother of the bride. A third said special family friend. There was no corsage for me. I stood there with my bare wrist and my old pearls, watching a woman I had never met receive flowers meant for someone important. When Brittany appeared near the staircase, radiant in her fitted gown, she saw me. I know she saw me. Her eyes touched my face, my dress, the gift bag in my hand, and then slid away as if I were a stranger waiting for a taxi. Daniel was beside her, adjusting his cuff. For 1 second, he looked in my direction. I raised my hand slightly. Not a wave, exactly. More like a mother asking to be seen. He opened his mouth, but Brittany touched his sleeve and said something. He turned back to her. That was the first time that day I felt the truth press against my ribs. By the time I found table 19, most of the guests were already seated in little clusters of belonging. The Caldwell family filled the front tables like royalty. Brittany's father, James, laughed with business partners near the bar. Her mother accepted compliments as if she had personally arranged the weather. Daniel's college friends slapped him on the back each time he passed. And I, who had held him through fevers and parent-teacher conferences and the terrible loneliness after his father was buried, was placed near the swinging kitchen doors, where warm air rushed out every time a server passed. I laid my purse on the chair beside me because no one had saved me a seat anywhere else. I told myself again that it was fine. That the day was not about me. That motherhood means stepping back. But stepping back is not the same as being erased. And as the evening unfolded, as Brittany took the microphone and made the whole room look at me only to laugh, I finally understood that table 19 had never been an accident. It had been preparation. For months before the wedding, Brittany had been teaching me how small she wanted me to feel. She never said it directly at first. Women like Brittany rarely begin with open cruelty. They begin with sweetness sharpened at the edges. They call you dear while moving your chair farther from the table. They say they are only trying to help while taking away the last places where you still belong. When Daniel first brought her to my house in Worthington, she arrived with a bottle of white wine, a perfect blowout, and a smile that made every sentence sound like a compliment. "Your home is so cozy, Margaret," she said, looking around my living room at the framed school photos, the crocheted throw over the sofa, the old piano Thomas had bought secondhand when Daniel was 9. "It feels like stepping into a memory." I thanked her because I wanted to like her. I wanted to believe my son had chosen someone kind. After dinner, she helped me clear plates and told Daniel, loudly enough for me to hear, "Your mother is adorable. She still makes pot roast like it is 1985. Daniel laughed. I laughed too, because that is what mothers do when the joke is small enough to survive. We swallow the sting and call it charm. Then came the engagement. Daniel called me on a Tuesday evening in March, his voice full of excitement and nerves. "Mom," I asked her. She said yes. I sat down at my kitchen table, one hand over my heart, and cried quietly after we hung up. Not sad tears. Not then. I imagined helping him choose a suit. I imagined standing beside him at the rehearsal, straightening his tie the way I had done before every school dance. I imagined Brittany and me finding a careful kind of friendship, not mother and daughter, exactly, but two women loving the same man in different ways. That dream lasted less than 2 weeks. The first wedding planning brunch was held at a restaurant in German Village. Brittany invited her mother, her 2 sisters, 3 bridesmaids, and a wedding planner named Celeste who wore black glasses and spoke as if every flower had legal significance. I found out about it from a photo Daniel posted online. 8 women around a marble table, little plates of pastries, fabric samples spread like a fan. Brittany had captioned it, "Planning the best day with my favorite women." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I told myself she must have assumed I was busy. When I called Daniel that night, he sounded uncomfortable. "Mom, Brittany thought it might be overwhelming for you. There are a lot of details." I taught second grade for 32 years, I said gently. I can survive centerpieces. He gave a tired little laugh. Please do not make this harder. She is under a lot of stress. That became his sentence. Please do not make this harder. He used it when Brittany changed the rehearsal dinner from the Italian restaurant Thomas and I had taken him to every birthday to a rooftop venue downtown because she said the old place had bad lighting. He used it when I was not invited to the cake tasting because Brittany wanted a younger palate. He used it when the invitations went out and my name appeared nowhere, not even in the line that said together with their families. It is modern wording, Daniel told me. Nobody cares about that anymore. I cared. Not because I needed my name printed on thick cardstock, but because every omission felt like a thread being pulled from the fabric of my life. Brittany had a way of making exclusion sound reasonable. She did not say, I do not want your mother there. She said, I think Margaret might get tired. She did not say, your mother embarrasses me. She said, some of her stories are a little heavy for the mood we are trying to create. She did not say, keep her away from my family. She said, let us protect her from feeling out of place. Protect me. That was the word she liked best. She protected me from the bridal shower by not telling me until the next day. She protected me from the venue walkthrough by saying there would be too much walking, though the ballroom was on the first floor. She protected me from the family photo schedule by deciding formal pictures would be too chaotic for older guests. Each time I felt the sting, Daniel asked me to be understanding. Each time, I chose peace over pride. I sent a crystal serving bowl from their registry. I mailed a handwritten note to Brittany after her bridal shower. I had my blue dress altered when she said champagne would blend better with the wedding colors. I tried. That is the part people forget when they look at an older woman sitting quietly at the edge of a room. They think quiet means passive. They do not see all the doors she knocked on before she accepted being left outside. The week before the wedding, Daniel came by my house alone. He looked tired, with shadows under his eyes and his phone buzzing every few minutes. I made coffee and set out cinnamon rolls because they had been his favorite since he was a boy. He ate half of one while scrolling through messages. Everything all right? I asked. Just wedding stuff, he said. Brittany wants to make sure Monday is still good for the house transfer appointment. There it was. The money. The reason Brittany's smile had warmed whenever real estate came up. I had offered the gift months earlier because Daniel said they were looking at a house in Dublin with a fenced yard and room for future children. $220,000 was not pocket change to me. It was part of Thomas's life insurance, part of the savings I had guarded carefully, part of a future I had once imagined spending on travel or grandchildren or keeping my own roof secure. But Daniel was my son. I wanted to help him begin. Before he left, he hugged me quickly at the door. Thanks, Mom, he said. For everything. I held on 1 second longer than he did. Over his shoulder, I saw the wedding invitation magnet on my refrigerator, all gold lettering and polished promises. I almost told him then that I felt erased. I almost asked him whether he still saw me. But his phone buzzed again, and he stepped back. Brittany needs me, he said. I nodded. Of course she did. By the time I sat at table 19 and heard her call me useless, I was not hearing something new. I was hearing the truth finally spoken into a microphone. The first dance began as if nothing had happened. Daniel and Brittany moved beneath the chandelier while the string quartet shifted into a soft version of Can't Help Falling in Love. Guests formed a circle around them, phones raised, faces softened by candlelight and champagne. Brittany rested one hand on Daniel's shoulder and smiled up at him as if she had not just carved a place for me at the edge of the room and called it gratitude. I watched her white dress sweep across the polished floor in slow, perfect circles. I watched Daniel guide her carefully, the same boy who once stepped on my toes in our kitchen while I taught him to dance before his 8th grade formal. He had been so nervous then, all elbows and apologies, laughing whenever he got the steps wrong. "Mom, nobody is going to dance with me," he had said, cheeks red with embarrassment. I had placed his hands where they belonged and told him, "A gentleman does not have to be perfect. He only has to be kind." I wondered, sitting there at table 19, whether he remembered that. When the song ended, everyone applauded. I did too. Lightly. My hands made almost no sound. Brittany's father gave a speech next, warm and polished, full of pride and family legacy and how thrilled he was to welcome Daniel into the Caldwell circle. Not the Whitmore family. The Caldwell circle. I noticed words like that now. They landed differently after the toast. Every phrase became a window. Every omission became a locked door. James Caldwell stood tall beside the head table, silver-haired and broad-shouldered, with the confidence of a man used to being listened to. He spoke about integrity, tradition, and protecting the people you love. I watched Brittany smile at him with misty eyes, the perfect daughter receiving the perfect tribute. I wondered what he would think if he had heard her voice without the music underneath it, without the wedding glow softening the edges. I wondered whether he had missed the cruelty, or whether he had simply chosen not to recognize it in his own child. Eleanor leaned closer. "Emily has the video," she said under her breath. I did not turn toward her. "How much of it?" "Enough." Across the room, my niece Emily stood near the dessert table, holding her phone against her chest. She was 32, practical, soft-spoken, and one of the few relatives who still called me Aunt Margaret even though technically I was only related through Thomas. Her eyes met mine for half a second. She did not smile. She gave the smallest nod. Enough. Such a small word. Such a heavy thing. A server placed a slice of wedding cake in front of me, 3 tiers of almond sponge with raspberry filling. I had not asked for it. The frosting. Rose in perfect white swirls, delicate as lace. I looked at it and thought about the cake tasting I had not been invited to because Brittany said the bakery stairs might be difficult for me. I thought about how easily people use age as a curtain to hide disrespect. They do not say, "We do not want you." They say, "We were worried you would get tired." They do not say, "You embarrass us." They say, "We thought this might be too much." They wrap rejection in concern and expect you to thank them for the ribbon. I picked up my fork, cut a neat corner from the cake, and set it back down without eating. My stomach had become a closed room. Later, during the anniversary dance, the disc jockey invited all married couples to the floor. If you have been married more than 5 years, stay dancing. 10 years. 20. 30. Couples slowly drifted away as the numbers climbed. I stayed seated, hands folded over my purse. Thomas and I had made it 38 years before his heart gave out on an ordinary Thursday morning while the coffee was still brewing. If he had lived, we would have been the last ones standing. I could almost feel his hand at the small of my back, steady and warm, guiding me through the steps. Thomas would have walked across that ballroom after Brittany's toast. He would not have raised his voice. He never needed to. He would have looked at Daniel with those calm gray eyes and said, "Son, you owe your mother respect before you owe anyone comfort." But Thomas was gone, and his absence had become a space other people felt free to step into. Brittany found that space. Daniel allowed it. That was the truth I could no longer soften. Around 9 o'clock, Brittany came to our table. She did not come alone. 2 bridesmaids hovered behind her with glittering smiles and half-empty champagne flutes, ready to laugh if she laughed, ready to frown if she frowned. Brittany placed one manicured hand on the back of the empty chair beside me. "Margaret," she said brightly, "you are being so quiet." Eleanor's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. I looked up at the bride. Up close, her makeup was flawless, her cheeks pink from dancing, her diamond earrings catching the light each time she moved. "It is a beautiful reception," I said. "Is it?" she asked, tilting her head. I was worried you might be upset about my little joke. Little. That word again. People call things little when they want you to feel foolish for bleeding. I heard what you said, I replied. Well, good, she said with a laugh that did not reach her eyes. I would hate for you to think I meant anything harsh. Everyone knows wedding speeches are supposed to be funny. One of the bridesmaids gave a nervous giggle. Brittany lowered her voice just enough to make it private and cruel at the same time. Do not look so hurt. You are making Daniel feel guilty, and today is not about you. There it was. The command beneath the lace. Be quiet. Be grateful. Be small. I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. No, I said calmly. Today is not about me. Her smile returned, satisfied too soon. I reached into my purse and touched the edge of the bank envelope, not pulling it out, only reminding myself it was there. But tomorrow, I said, maybe. Brittany blinked once. For the first time all evening, her expression slipped. Not much. Just enough for me to see the calculation behind it. She recovered quickly, patted the chair as if I were a child, and said, try to enjoy the rest of the night. Then she swept away, carrying her little court behind her. Eleanor waited until Brittany was out of earshot. You are leaving soon, she said. It was not a question. I looked toward the head table. Daniel was watching me. When our eyes met, he looked away. Again. That small movement settled something inside me. I had spent months hoping my son was confused, pressured, overwhelmed, anything but willing. But a man does not need perfect circumstances to defend his mother. He only needs a spine made of something stronger than convenience. I stood slowly, smoothing the front of my champagne dress. I did not announce myself. I did not make a speech. I did not throw anyone's shame back across the room. I simply picked up my purse, took the cream-colored envelope from beneath my napkin, and held it flat against my side. Eleanor rose with me. Near the dessert table, Emily stepped away from her cousins and followed. As we walked toward the ballroom doors, the music swelled behind us, bright and cheerful, as if the night still believed it was beautiful. Just before I reached the hallway, I turned once more. Daniel was still seated beside his bride, surrounded by flowers, applause, and people who had not raised him. He looked smaller than he had at 8 years old in my kitchen. I gave him one final chance to stand. He did not. So I walked out. The hallway outside the ballroom felt cooler than the reception, almost cold enough to wake me from the strange calm that had settled over my body. The music became muffled behind the heavy double doors, turning laughter and applause into a distant, underwater sound. For the first time since Brittany lifted that microphone, I could hear my own breathing. Eleanor walked on my right. Emily walked a few steps behind us, her phone still in her hand, her face pale with the seriousness of what she had captured. None of us spoke until we reached a quiet sitting area near the hotel's side entrance, where 2 armchairs faced a gas fireplace nobody had bothered to turn on. I sat down carefully, not because I was weak, but because my knees had finally remembered that I was human. The cream-colored envelope rested on my lap. My name was typed across the front in neat black letters, Margaret Ellis Whitmore. Daniel's name appeared beneath mine on the first page inside, along with Brittany's, the address of the house in Dublin, and the amount I had agreed to gift toward the down payment. $220,000. I stared at that number and felt no triumph. Only a deep, tired sadness. Money has a way of revealing people, but it is never the money that hurts. It is realizing when someone smiled at you because they saw a check, not a mother. Eleanor sat across from me, smoothing the skirt of her emerald dress over her knees. She had the expression she used when she was preparing to tell a client something unpleasant but necessary. Show me the document, she said. I handed her the envelope without a word. She removed the papers, adjusted her glasses, and read the final page even though she had helped draft it 3 months earlier at my kitchen table. Back then, I had almost been embarrassed by the condition she insisted on adding. This feels dramatic, I had told her, pouring coffee into the blue mugs Thomas and I bought in Maine. Eleanor had looked at me over the rim of her glasses. No, Margaret. Dramatic is giving away $250,000 to people who have learned there are no consequences for disrespecting you. I had laughed softly then, because it sounded too severe. Daniel was my son. Brittany was about to become family. Surely basic kindness did not need to be protected in writing. But Eleanor had seen what I did not want to see. She had heard the careful pauses in my stories. She had noticed how often I explained Brittany's behavior for her. So she wrote the condition in simple language, clean enough that no one could pretend to misunderstand it. The gift would not be released until I confirmed, in writing, that the transfer was voluntary, free from coercion, and made in the spirit of mutual respect between both families. Mutual respect. 2 ordinary words. Heavy as stone now. Eleanor tapped the page once with her finger. You have not signed the final release. No, I said. Good. Emily lowered herself onto the edge of the other chair. Aunt Margaret, she said, her voice small, I am so sorry. I looked at her then, really looked. She had Thomas's brown eyes, the same worried crease between her brows. You did nothing wrong, sweetheart. I should have said something. Most people the hallway outside the ballroom was cooler than the reception, quiet enough that I could hear my own breathing for the first time that evening. Behind the closed double doors, the music kept playing, muffled and cheerful, as if happiness could be sealed inside a room and protected from the truth. Eleanor walked on my left, Emily on my right, and for a few seconds none of us spoke. The 3 of us stopped near a row of tall windows overlooking downtown Columbus. Below us, headlights moved along High Street like little white threads. I looked at my reflection in the glass and saw a woman in a champagne dress, pearls at her throat, shoulders straight, eyes dry. I did not look useless. I looked tired of pretending cruelty was confusion. Emily was the first to speak. Aunt Margaret, she said softly, I have the whole thing. She held up her phone with both hands, like she was carrying something fragile. From the moment Brittany started thanking people. I did not know she was going to say that. I was just recording the toast. Eleanor took the phone and watched for 10 seconds. Her mouth tightened, but she did not interrupt the video. When Brittany's voice came through the tiny speaker, sweet and sharp, the hallway seemed to grow colder. I heard the words again. Same old stories. Same casseroles. Guilt trips. Useless old woman. It was different outside the ballroom. Inside, the insult had been wrapped in lights, flowers, music, and nervous laughter. Out here, without the wedding decorations to soften it, it sounded exactly like what it was. Eleanor stopped the video and handed the phone back to Emily. Send a copy to yourself, she said. Then send one to me. Do not post it. Do not send it to the family group unless Margaret tells you to. Emily nodded quickly. I would never do that without asking. I believed her. That small respect nearly broke me more than Brittany's insult had. Sometimes kindness hurts when you have spent too long being denied it. I sat down on a velvet bench near the coatroom and opened my purse. The cream-colored envelope was still there, clean and flat, as if it had not just survived the worst evening of my life. I pulled it out and rested it on my lap. Franklin County Trust. Daniel Whitmore and Brittany Caldwell. Conditional gift authorization. $220,000. I remembered the day I signed it. Eleanor had sat across from me at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, reading every line slowly because she knew I had a habit of trusting people I loved. Margaret, she had said, tapping the page with her pen, generosity is not the same thing as surrender. You can help your son without handing your dignity to his bride. I had almost laughed then. It had sounded too dramatic. Brittany was difficult, yes. Polished, controlling, a little dismissive. But surely not cruel enough to make a legal condition necessary. Surely Daniel would never allow that. So I signed the condition more to reassure Eleanor than to protect myself. The money would only transfer after I confirmed in writing, after the wedding, that the gift had not been obtained through pressure, manipulation, or public humiliation connected to my role in the family. Public humiliation. The words had seemed almost excessive on paper. Now they looked like a prophecy. Eleanor sat beside me. You understand what this means? I nodded. It means the money stays where it is. It also means she cannot claim you promised it unconditionally. She will try. Of course she will, Eleanor said. People who mistake kindness for weakness always call boundaries betrayal. Emily lowered herself into the chair across from us. Daniel knows about the money, right? I looked toward the ballroom doors. Daniel knows there was going to be help with a house. My voice sounded calm, almost too calm. I do not know what Brittany told him beyond that. A server passed carrying a tray of empty champagne glasses and gave us a quick, uncertain glance. I folded the envelope back into my purse. I had no desire to become gossip in the hallway while the reception still sparkled behind me. I am going home, I said. Eleanor stood at once. I will drive. I brought my car. And I am still driving, she said. You can argue tomorrow when your hands stop shaking. I looked down. She was right. My hands, which had stayed steady through the toast, through Brittany's little visit to my table, through Daniel looking away again and again, were trembling now. Not wildly. Just enough to remind me that dignity is not the absence of pain. It is what you choose not to do with it. Emily hugged me carefully, mindful of my pearls. I am sorry, she whispered. You have nothing to apologize for. Someone should. I touched her cheek. Someone will. As Eleanor and I walked toward the elevators, my phone buzzed in my purse. I did not check it until we reached the lobby. The message was from Brittany. Not Daniel. Brittany. It said, do not forget the bank appointment Monday morning. Daniel is counting on you. No apology. No concern. No mention of the toast. Just the money, standing there between us like the only family member she truly respected. I stared at the screen until Eleanor glanced over. Is it him? She asked. No, I said. It is the bride. Eleanor read the message and let out a quiet breath through her nose. Well, she said, pressing the elevator button, that saves us wondering whether she regrets anything. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside, still holding the phone. For the first time all night, I did not feel erased. I felt clear. Brittany had wanted me small, silent, grateful, and useful only when a signature was needed. But by Monday morning, she would learn that an old woman with a pen can close a door just as quietly as she once opened it. By the time Monday morning arrived, I had learned something strange about humiliation. The first night, it burns. The second day, it aches. But by the third morning, if you let yourself sit with it instead of running from it, it begins to harden into shape. I woke before sunrise in my house on Maple Ridge Avenue, the same house where Daniel had learned to ride a bicycle in the driveway and Thomas had planted hydrangeas along the fence. For years, I had thought of that house as a place of memories. That morning, it felt more like a witness. The kitchen was quiet except for the coffee maker. I set out 3 mugs, then put one back in the cabinet. Old habits have a way of reaching for people who no longer deserve a place at your table. Eleanor arrived at 8:15 carrying a leather folder and wearing the expression she used back when she still practiced law. Calm. Precise. Almost gentle, but not quite. Emily sent both files, she said as she stepped inside. The video is clear. Audio too. I nodded and poured her coffee. Daniel has not called. Brittany? 6 messages since yesterday afternoon. Eleanor raised one eyebrow. I handed her my phone. She read them in silence, one after another. The first asked whether I had remembered the bank appointment. The second reminded me that the sellers of the house in Dublin were expecting good faith. The third said Daniel was stressed and I should not add to it. The fourth said weddings made people emotional and that I needed to keep perspective. The fifth was shorter. Please do not embarrass us. The sixth arrived at midnight. We are family now. Family keeps promises. Eleanor set the phone down on my kitchen table. Interesting, she said. Not one apology. Not one. And Daniel? I looked toward the window above the sink. The hydrangeas were beginning to fade at the edges, their blue heads heavy from last night's rain. He is letting her speak for him. Eleanor opened her folder and laid out the documents. The conditional gift authorization. The bank appointment confirmation. A printed copy of Brittany's message about the transfer. A small flash drive with Emily's video. Everything neat. Everything quiet. That was how I wanted it. I did not want revenge that looked like anger. I wanted truth with clean hands. At 9:30, a black sport utility vehicle pulled up in front of my house. I saw Daniel get out first, wearing the same navy suit he used for client meetings. Brittany followed in cream slacks, oversized sunglasses, and a coat that probably cost more than my monthly property tax. She carried a folder against her chest like a shield. Daniel looked up at the house before coming to the door. For one brief second, I saw the boy he had been, standing on the porch after missing curfew, scared but still certain I would open the door. And I did open it. That was the tragedy of being a mother. You can know someone has failed you and still recognize the shape of their shoulders in the cold. Mom, Daniel said. His voice was careful. Can we come in? Brittany stepped forward before I answered. We do not have much time. The bank appointment is at 10:30, and we still need to review the final numbers. Eleanor appeared behind me. Good morning, Brittany. Brittany's smile tightened. Eleanor. I did not realize this was a meeting. It became one when documents were involved, Eleanor said. I stepped aside and let them in. Not because I was welcoming them the way I used to, but because some conversations deserve walls, chairs, and witnesses. We sat at the dining table. Brittany placed her folder down immediately and began removing papers. Purchase agreement. Closing estimate. Wire instructions. She had everything prepared except humility. Daniel kept his hands folded, eyes moving between me and the documents. Mom, he said, before we get into this, I know Saturday was a lot. A lot. Such a convenient phrase. A flat tire is a lot. A long line at the grocery store is a lot. Your new wife reducing your mother to a joke in front of 260 guests is not a lot. It is a choice. Was it? I asked. He swallowed. Brittany did not mean it the way it sounded. Brittany removed her sunglasses slowly. Exactly. It was a toast. Everyone makes jokes at weddings. I am sorry if you were sensitive to it. Eleanor leaned back in her chair, saying nothing. I looked at Daniel. Is that your apology too? His face changed. Just slightly. Mom, I do not want this to turn into a fight. Neither do I. I reached for my laptop, opened it, and turned the screen toward them. That is why we are going to listen instead. Brittany's hand froze above her folder. Daniel frowned. Listen to what? I pressed play. Emily's video filled the room with the sound of clinking glasses and Brittany's bright, polished voice. At first, Brittany sat very still, chin lifted, as if she could outlast her own words. Then the sentence came. Not a real woman taking care of you. A useless old woman clinging to the past. Without the ballroom, without the flowers, without the nervous laughter trying to cover the cruelty, the words landed bare on my dining table. Daniel stared at the screen. His face drained slowly, not with surprise exactly, but with recognition. As if he had heard it before and only now understood what he had allowed. Brittany reached for the laptop. Eleanor's voice stopped her. Do not touch it. The video ended. Silence remained. I closed the laptop with one hand. Now, I said, keeping my voice even, let us talk about the house. For several seconds, no one moved. The morning light fell across my dining table in pale strips, touching the papers Brittany had spread out so confidently only minutes earlier. Purchase agreement. Closing estimate. Wire instructions. So many neat little pages built around the assumption that I would still sign whatever they placed in front of me. Brittany was the first to recover. She gave a small laugh, thin and polished. This is ridiculous, she said. You are really going to punish your own son over a wedding joke? Daniel flinched at the word punish, but he still did not speak. I looked at him, not at her. Daniel, did you think it was funny? His eyes moved to the closed laptop. Mom, he stopped. Brittany turned toward him sharply. Do not do that. Do not let her twist this. Everyone laughed. No, Eleanor said quietly. They did not. Brittany's face tightened. This is a family matter. Eleanor opened the leather folder in front of her. It became a legal matter when you scheduled a bank transfer for $220,000. The number hung in the air. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, as if hearing it spoken aloud made the whole thing heavier. Brittany sat back, but only slightly. She was still fighting for control of the room. I had watched her do it for months with soft phrases and little smiles. Now, without music or flowers or bridesmaids behind her, the effort looked almost childish. Margaret offered that money, she said. Freely. For our first home. We made plans based on that promise. I did offer it, I said. To help my son begin a marriage rooted in respect. Brittany's mouth curved. Respect goes both ways. It does. I reached into my purse and removed the cream-colored envelope. I placed it on the table between us. Not dramatically. Not with anger. Just flat, centered, undeniable. That is why Eleanor advised me to protect the gift before I signed anything. Daniel opened his eyes. Protect it how? Eleanor slid the document toward him. Your mother did not agree to an unconditional transfer. The funds were to be released only after she confirmed, in writing, that the gift had not been obtained through pressure, manipulation, or public humiliation related to her place in the family. Daniel read the clause once. Then again. Brittany reached for the paper, but he held it longer than she expected. Daniel, she snapped, give it to me. He looked at her then. Really looked. It was the first time that morning I saw something in him shift from discomfort to understanding. You knew about the money, he said slowly. Of course I knew. We both knew. No, he said. You knew she had not signed the final release yet. Brittany blinked. That is not the point. It is exactly the point, I said. My voice was calm, but my hands were cold in my lap. Saturday night, before you asked whether I was all right, before either of you called to apologize, before my son found the courage to say one honest sentence, you sent me a message reminding me about the appointment. The house mattered before I did. Daniel turned toward me, pain finally breaking through his face. Mom, I did not know she texted you like that. You did not ask. The sentence was not loud. It did not need to be. He lowered his head. Brittany pushed back her chair. The legs scraped the floor, a harsh sound in my quiet dining room. So what now? You ruin our closing? You embarrass us in front of the sellers? You make Daniel lose the house because you cannot take a joke? Eleanor folded her hands. The appointment at Franklin County Trust has already been cancelled. Brittany went still. Cancelled? At 8:40 this morning, Eleanor said. With written notice that Mrs. Whitmore declined to authorize the gift. For the first time since I had known her, Brittany had nothing ready. No sweet correction. No careful laugh. No little phrase designed to make me look unreasonable. Her eyes moved from Eleanor to me, then to Daniel, searching for the weakest person in the room. She chose my son. Say something, she demanded. Daniel's throat moved. What do you want me to say? Tell her she is overreacting. He looked at the document again. Then at me. I should have stopped you. Brittany stared at him as if he had spoken a foreign language. Excuse me? His voice was quiet. At the reception. I should have stopped you. I felt no victory when he said it. Only a tired sadness. A sentence spoken 2 days late does not erase the silence that came before it. Brittany grabbed her folder, shoving papers inside without lining them up. This is unbelievable. My father warned me your family would make everything difficult. That was when my phone buzzed on the table. Then Daniel's. Then Brittany's. 3 little sounds, almost together. Emily had not sent the video to the family group. Not yet. But someone from the wedding had posted a vague message online about a bride insulting the groom's mother during a toast at the Grand Willow Hotel. No names, but enough details. 260 guests. Columbus. Useless old woman. The story was already leaving the ballroom without me pushing it. Brittany snatched up her phone, her face paling as she read. Who did this? She whispered. Eleanor looked at her steadily. Sometimes when you humiliate someone in a room full of people, you do not get to choose how many remember. Daniel stood slowly. Brittany, we should go. No, she said. You need to fix this. He looked at me, and for a moment he seemed small again, not innocent, but small. Mom, I stood before he could finish. There is nothing to fix here today. The money is staying where it is. The appointment is cancelled. And whatever happens next will be the result of what was said, not what I refused to hide. Brittany walked out first, fast and rigid, her heels striking the floor like punctuation. Daniel lingered at the doorway. I am sorry, he said. I wanted those words to reach the part of me that had waited for them all weekend. They did not. I know, I said. But sorry is not a key, Daniel. It does not open every door just because you finally found it. He left without another word. When the front door closed, the house became quiet again. Eleanor gathered the papers into her folder. I picked up the 3rd coffee mug I had almost set out that morning and returned it to the cabinet where it belonged. Outside, the hydrangeas bent under the weight of old rain, but they had not broken. By noon, the story had grown legs without my help. That is how public cruelty works. People may stay silent when it happens in front of them, but silence does not always mean loyalty. Sometimes it means they are waiting until they are safely away from the room. My phone kept lighting up on the kitchen counter while Eleanor made a fresh pot of coffee and pretended not to watch me read each message. A cousin from Dayton wrote, I should have said something Saturday. I am sorry. One of Thomas's old coworkers said he had been at the wedding and left early because the toast made him uncomfortable. A woman from Brittany's side of the family, someone I had only met once near the gift table, sent 3 careful sentences, you did not deserve that. Many of us heard it. Please know not everyone was laughing. I sat at the table in my quiet house, reading those words over and over, not because they healed anything, but because they confirmed I had not imagined the wound. Around 2 o'clock, Emily called. Her voice trembled with anger she was trying to control. Aunt Margaret, Brittany posted in the family group. I closed my eyes. What did she say? Emily hesitated. She said you canceled their house money because you wanted attention at the wedding. She said you have been jealous of her from the beginning. Eleanor set her mug down. I opened the family group chat. There it was. A long message from Brittany, polished and wounded, explaining how hard she had worked to include me, how emotional older parents could become during weddings, how a harmless joke had been twisted into an attack, and how heartbreaking it was that I would punish Daniel during the first week of his marriage. She did not mention the exact words she used. People like Brittany rarely repeat the truth when a softer lie will serve them better. Before I could decide whether to answer, Emily sent the video. No introduction. No argument. Just the full clip, from Brittany's sparkling smile to the moment Daniel lifted his glass while I sat alone at table 19. For the next 3 minutes, the group chat went silent. Then messages appeared one by one. My sister-in-law Carol wrote, "That was not harmless." Daniel's cousin Mark wrote, "I was there. It was worse in person." Someone from the Caldwell side wrote, "I cannot defend that." Then Brittany's father, James Caldwell, called me. I almost did not answer. Eleanor nodded once, so I put it on speaker. His voice was not loud. It was heavy. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said, "I owe you an apology." I looked down at Thomas's ring on my finger. "You do not owe me your daughter's apology." "No," he said. "But I owe you mine for not standing up when I heard it." I was embarrassed, and I chose the comfort of the room over what was right. That was cowardly. There are certain apologies that arrive too late but still carry weight because they ask for nothing in return. His did. He told me he had spoken to Brittany and that she would apologize publicly to both families if she wanted any further support from him. I thanked him, not warmly but honestly. After we hung up, Eleanor said, "That was more than Daniel managed." She was right, and I wished she was not. Daniel came by alone that evening. I saw his car from the front window, parked at the curb beneath the old maple tree. He sat inside for almost 5 minutes before getting out. When I opened the door, he looked exhausted, his tie loosened, his face pale with the kind of shame that had finally run out of excuses. "Can I talk to you?" he asked. I let him in, but I did not offer coffee. Some habits deserve to be broken gently, one at a time. He stood in the living room, looking at the piano, the family photos, the worn armchair where Thomas used to read the paper on Sunday mornings. "I watched the video again," he said. "All of it." I waited. He rubbed both hands over his face. I do not know why I did not stop her. "I do," I said. He looked at me. "You wanted the moment to pass more than you wanted to protect me." His eyes filled, but I did not soften the sentence. I had spent too many years cushioning hard truths so men I loved could land comfortably. "Mom," I was embarrassed. I felt trapped. So did I. He lowered his head. "I am sorry." The words were small in the room. Not useless. Just small. "I believe you," I said. He looked up quickly, hope rising too soon. I raised one hand. "But believing you are sorry does not mean I am ready to pretend nothing happened." His mouth tightened. "Brittany is upset." "I imagine she is. Her father is furious. People are talking. The sellers want to know whether we are moving forward." I sat down in Thomas's chair, slowly, because my knees ached and because I wanted Daniel to see I was no longer standing at attention for his crisis. "You still think the house is the emergency?" He had no answer. Outside, evening settled over Maple Ridge Avenue, turning the windows dark and reflective. I saw myself in the glass again, smaller than the room but not diminished by it. "Daniel," I said, "I spent your whole life trying to make sure you never felt alone. I stayed up during storms. I worked summers when money was tight. I went without things I wanted because you needed things I could provide. I do not regret any of it. But I will not buy my way back into a family that only remembers me when a signature is required. He sat across from me, crying quietly now, the way he had when he was little and trying not to make sound. It hurt. Of course it hurt. Love does not disappear just because respect has been broken. That is what makes betrayal so heavy. It lands on top of everything good that came before it. What do I do? He whispered. You start by telling the truth without asking me to make it easier. He nodded. I could see he wanted to hug me. I could also see that he knew he had not earned it yet. When he left, I stood at the window and watched his car pull away. I did not feel victorious. Victory is too loud a word for what happens when a mother stops begging to be valued. I felt quiet. Clear. The next week, I canceled the house transfer permanently and moved the money into a trust for my own care, my home, and whatever future I chose without asking permission. Brittany sent one formal apology in the group chat after her father insisted. It was neat, careful, and empty. I accepted it the same way I accept a receipt from the grocery store, proof that an exchange occurred, not proof that anything meaningful had changed. Daniel began calling every few days, but I no longer answered every time. On Wednesdays, I had breakfast with Eleanor at a diner on North High Street. On Fridays, I worked in the garden until my knees told me to stop. I turned the room I had once. Imagined saving for future grandchildren into a reading room with blue curtains, a soft chair, and shelves for every book I had postponed while being useful to everyone else. That wedding was supposed to give me a daughter-in-law. Instead, it gave me the truth. And at 68 years old, I finally learned that being alone in a peaceful house is better than being needed in a room where no one respects you.